going, or if you'll be on Mondays and Tuesdays are going?
I think that the Wednesday Zooms are going pretty well. Um, a lot of the teachers have figured out some way to make the short classes useful. If it's just doing a few quick problems or going over something, they've definitely been good at utilizing their time. And on Thursday and Friday, I think that a lot of the students have been able to have more flexible schedules, so they've been able to do their schoolwork and their homework that they have more in like a flexible time, and possibly utilize some of the weekend to do as well. So I think it's going well. Kids seem to have some more motivation than this semester than they did last spring, just because of the half in school time. So I think that it's all going really well so far.
Most of our teachers on the Wednesday Zooms are using it, for me at least, as like a check-in day kind of, for asking for new assignments to be due. And most of my teachers are doing assignments due on Tuesday and Thursday for both cohorts, just to keep it pretty even. And for me at least, I'm not on school Monday and Tuesday, and so I use Monday as my day one homework day, and then Tuesday I use that as day two, because teachers are posting while kids are in school different lesson plans and videos of what they're teaching their kids in school that day.
Anything else, Eric? Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Thanks a lot for joining us, and you're welcome to stay on as long as you like.
Thank you.
I don't think you have a selectman representative.
I don't think so. We'll do one more check. Jackie, did you see a selectman on the line? I don't see anyone participants.
I don't see anybody.
Okay. Okay, so we'll move that into our discussion action items for the evening. First one up is for discussion, and that's on the COVID-19 district expenses, cost projections, and grant funding availability. The FFO committee met last week, and then reviewed a very extensive spreadsheet which Mariana and Jeff and several others have put together. And that was refined, and then that was taken for information to the Board of Finance meeting, just to start the dialogue with them, to get any feedback that they have as to how they would like to see the information as well. And so this evening, it's time for, obviously, for the full board now to take a look at this. And again, if people have, as Jeff, as soon as you can watch.
Yeah.
Let's go through it. We're really interested in making it as useful, I guess, a document as possible, because the complexity of it is probably just going to, well, you don't know, probably greater and greater. So Jeff, you want to?
Yeah. Thank you, Tim. So we typically would bring this obviously to the Board of Ed prior to bringing it to the Board of Finance, but given the timeline, we really felt it was important to get in front of the Board of Finance and have a discussion with them and get that dialogue going as it pertains to expenses. And kudos, and we thank Mariana for her work and efforts on this, and SFO as well for some input. We kind of changed it around, and Mariana did a great job of kind of giving us our actual expenses or encumbered estimates through December, and then estimates through the end of the year. And it's important to break them out that way, because if for whatever reason we end up going fully remote, which I hope we go the opposite direction, a lot of these expenses go away, disappear, and we could see savings in many ways. I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but there are quite a few expenses that have already occurred, and a lot of that is around the PPE. So we can kind of dive into this, and hopefully this is in my weekly update, and then I will attach the board doc. So hopefully you have a chance to take a look at this over the weekend. We can answer any questions. So, and Chris Lund's on the line too for our first area here with protective personnel equipment. Kudos to him. He started that debate very early, ordering supplies, our masks, gloves, sanitizer, all of plexiglass, all of those items. So we had much of that. Some of it's still, a few things are still coming in, but for the most part, we've got almost everything in place. which is important. It was important at the start of the school year to help support our teachers and students and staff as they transition back into school. So you can see the actual expenditures and costs. We'll talk about the grant at the end, because on the last page we have some grant, or second last page we have some grant funding to help offset, some of this. We also, to hold all that equipment, under other supplies and equipment, we needed a new storage locker to hold, hand sanitizer, which is flammable, and also to hold, items that we took out of classrooms, because we were trying to limit the number of items in classes to provide more space. So we took a lot of things out. So that was, the PPE components. Chris Lund is on the line too. Anything, questions or things you heard? I mean, we've got a lot of plexiglass up, cafeterias, these tables when they're down, you can see them up there all folded. Those all cover and go on top of each table. So students are looking through those. So it's there, basically, on the tables. Any PPE, questions or things that have come up or concerns?
Well, do we have enough?
We do. The only thing is, plexiglass. I think in Chris Lund, if you're on the line, do we have anything left with plexiglass that we still don't have in place?
Could you repeat the question, Jeff?
Sorry, plexiglass. Is there anything or any areas that still we're in need of some plexiglass, or have we been able to hit all areas that we needed to have in place?
Okay, so we got a delivery today of $20,000 worth of plexiglass. In that delivery were dividers for all the cafeteria tables at the middle school. All the remaining pieces, except for one or two that came in after the order went in for the high school, and a number of pieces for Niantic Center. I think the last order that's still pending is maybe for about 20 pieces. So that'll be in next week. And then all of the requests and otherwise required places that we wanted to cover will be complete.
Okay. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
And what we do with all this plexiglass at the end of all this is going to be interesting, so I'm not sure. We put it on the line.
I'm thinking of really cool.
Yeah.
To do something with it. I don't know. Kind of like it.
Just ask about the consumable PPE, the face masks and the face shields and, sorry.
Yeah.
And
So
how are we doing on that?
we're doing, Chris, the face masks. We had about 50,000 face masks, I think it was.
Well, we had 15,000, so we don't seem to be going through the basic face masks that quickly. What I gave out originally, nobody's asked to add to that yet. So I think, again, most people are bringing their own. Where we have gotten a number of additional requests since people have found them or found that we had them are for the ones that you can see through.
Yeah.
So that you can see people's faces. They aren't the best quality. They're not supposed to be one and done forever. So we are going through those. I think we're going to need to order more of those. But so far, everything else that we procured seems to be going at a reasonable pace. We finally did get a bunch of gloves in today, the nitrile gloves. That had been one of the things that was really concerning us because we had ordered those a long time ago. And it was taking so long to get those in. So we're happy to get those. As well as we got a shipment in of the disinfectant wipes today too, which was good because there's been a high request for those. But it seems now with the gloves finally in that the supply chains, I think, finally caught up, and we have some pretty good sources of supply for everything to keep us going where we need to be from here on out.
Chris, I know face shields have been ordered. Jamie just asked about face shields. We're good in that department as well, correct?
Yeah, we handed out originally to everyone. We still have a bunch in stock. I haven't gotten any additional requests from people that got one the first time that I know, but we have plenty to hand out if we need them.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Sure.
So that's where we are with PPE supplies. Again, most kids are bringing their own, and staff are bringing their own masks, but we have them readily available. Technology, we moved down there. I mentioned at the Board of Finance, the owner of Zoom is like a billionaire now after the last couple months, so kudos to him or her. But the Zoom licenses, we needed them district-wide. We're also getting Zoom licenses, an account to each of our TAs So the TAs have them to be able to utilize, so you can see the cost there. And then the mobile document cameras we've talked about before, those go along with the iPads, or I'm sorry, the laptops, that we've given to staff. And then what's most important is the distance learning help. I'll let Amy chime in on this, but we've had to work with custom computers. You probably saw in the update this past Friday, the number of parental requests for support is just, it's through the roof, and we don't have the staff capacity, anywhere near the capacity. They're just working beyond overtime, and killing themselves, to get to all of our families. So this help desk request, our service, will allow parents to call into that. That'll be important when we have our student devices here at the end of the month, because we're going to need service and help there. So Amy, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mentioned at the Board of Finance meeting in the sense that we basically, if you add up the parents and guardians or caregivers to our students, we basically added 5,000 stakeholders to our tech support, because we need to be supporting, and the large part of who we're realizing we're supporting are grandparents and caregivers who are watching the children on those 2 days in which they're home. So we reached out to Custom, because they've been our partner. They are offering it to a couple other districts as well, and actually Chris Howard, who works for us in our capacity, is actually overseeing our virtual desk. So it's nice that they have an opportunity. The other thing is they are willing to only bill us monthly. So should we not need it, or should it no longer become relevant, or should we say, okay, I think we're looking good as far as this is concerned, you're only billed on a monthly basis. But the goal is we need to provide the anxiety level of parents who are trying to set their kids up for success and meeting that target. We hit our max capacity for sure about a week and a half ago. Where it's just, Amy, I have 896 emails. Is there a date you want me to just go back to? Because I'm just chipping away one at a time. And so we definitely hit capacity with the needs for parents. So it's definitely something we're realizing that the stakeholder group that needs its own support right now in our current model.
Yep. And again, when the laptops come in, devices come in, we'll need more help there. But then, as Amy said, that's a nice thing that they've offered us, monthly payment, because when we don't need it anymore, we can just say, we're done, and thank you very much.
Well, right, and the nice part is too, is when we get by having the laptops and the iPads, now I'm only dealing with 2 different models. Whereas right now, like this morning, I was on the phone with a grandmother, and she has her daughter's provided laptops. They were each something different, and she didn't even know how to turn it on. So I was walking her through, but I don't know what she has, I don't know what that is, but it was, you want kids to be successful. Absolutely.
Can I just add something too? I mean, nobody could have foreseen the magnitude of really what it was going to look like until we were in it. And I think that, honestly, I think this district, and I think you specifically, have done such an incredible job. And I know that there isn't enough thank yous. I know that people aren't usually emailing you with a thank you. I know you've gotten some, which is really great, but it's difficult. And I think that you all just really, kept it going. And we're gonna just.
Well, I do have to say on behalf of the board, we would have been dead in the water if we didn't invest in the infrastructure project and the teachers like. So that helped greatly cut down some of those requests, because typically what we see in those first 2 weeks. So thank you for that.
And also, it helps other districts. I have been online in some other districts. It has the same challenges. Everybody's having these challenges.
Oh, it's definitely regional.
But key is communication and listening and being versatile and shifting as we go. I thank you for all you do.
My team is
Incredible. Yep. So now there's going to be a phone number.
So they can just call a hotline number, and they'll get a.
So hopefully by the end of this week, it will be set up, and I'd be able to announce to parents that as of Monday, you're gonna have 3 opportunities as to how you can do it. They can either call, they can put in an actual ticket if they're tech savvy, or they can even text. So it's whatever is convenient for the caregiver. Or to be honest with you, even student. I have to be honest with you, when you're on the phone with a parent, it's like, is the student there? You get them on the phone. Because if you troubleshoot with the student, then normally it's a pretty successful call, and they're the ones who should be learning, so. Yeah.
These I mean, is there a limit to the, I mean, I can see this thing, oh yeah, we're gonna offer this amount of support, and all of a sudden they realize they've got it over their head. What if they get twice the amount of calls that they thought they were gonna get?
So they have the capacity, so what happens right now basically is because of this model that they're offering, they have about 25 techs that are assigned between two districts, and they rotate between the two districts that know us. They have the capacity to meet up to 10,000 per hour, basically. And they're gonna be providing remote in access, which they can always provide depending on sort of what they have going on. And they're able to provide that, so.
Oh, so wait, so they can help from their own computer? Oh.
Yeah, if you can get them to understand.
That's fantastic.
But it's a parent, caregiver, stable group that we don't have the capacity to help them in the way that we know that we need to right now, in particular of the hybrid model, as they're trying to support their children.
This is a regional issue with many districts that don't have an outside vendor that they work with.
Yeah.
They're trying to do it on their own. They're experiencing a lot of this. And we've been reached out to a lot about, some are looking at custom computers, actually over 2 districts, who we're using. So we're trying to sign on and get some extra support.
Barry, you want to say something?
I just a quick question about, on the Zoom. I know there are other vendors out there. There's options through Google Meet, there's Skype, there's GoToMeeting. There are a couple other ones out there. I'm wondering whether we had investigated those or how we came down to Zoom with the $28,000. I'm just wondering if there are other options. I know that Google Meet, is integrated into Google Classroom. And it's just a question of 28,000 versus something that there's no cost.
And some are using, some are using, some staff are using, Google Meet. I think Zoom, it started last year. It's what people were most familiar with, Barry, rather than trying to bring in another model or another platform, I guess I'll call it. It's just seemed the way to go. Every district is using Zoom as well, so we're corresponding across regionally. That's what everybody is using, so that I know of.
Yeah, and one of the things that came, because our middle and high only use Google, so it was something that could be used universally, and we didn't want to have the elementary parents have to then also be logging into Google and Seesaw, and now bring them into 2 platforms, really. So and then we're trying to think, if you have a family too that's in multiple buildings, how can we make sure that you're only helping your students get onto one platform? And then the other piece of it, which we learned, is Zoom. Zoom is great in the sense that they gave everyone a free account in the spring, and that was great. But as we learned the features, is also too, a teacher can record, and now we have like a digital library that we can use as part of the recorded. Say they're doing their Wednesday mini lesson, they can actually record the Zoom. It keeps a library for the teacher as well of those videos, so it allows for a little bit easier share.
Now, is that what they use for the flip classroom?
Yes, they can use the Zoom, yes, for
Which I've
that.
heard a lot of great things.
But we also have like Flipgrid and other software tools that we use.
Okay.
We did not look into Skype or GoToMeeting. We did not look into either of those platforms. And again, strictly because it was sort of the teachers were like, Zoom is what's being out there. It's what parents would know because they might be exposed to it at the workforce. And so it just became one of those. But I just want to be clear, we don't look into those 2 other options.
It's a good thing that you mentioned that. I think the convenience of it and actually people knowing, kind of being familiar with it a little bit helps. You mentioned Seesaw. So Seesaw, I've been hearing quite a few obstacles with Seesaw. Has that been ironed out, or?
So the interesting piece about Seesaw and Google Classroom, it's different from spring to this fall, is that we're really trying to set it up in a universal manner. So one of the things that we're doing is my building instructional techs, for example, we've created sort of universal design of Google Classroom, universal design for Seesaw. And then one of the things we're trying to do is we're trying to hold people accountable on a weekly basis as to, pulling them up, looking at them, making sure the structure's there. So some of the problems and things that we've heard are not implementation of the universal design. This is the way that they like to organize their students, or this is the way they like to post student work or provide feedback in meetings, to stay on top of that, really, and just calibrate people as a district that we need to be more universal in our design. It's gonna be central. So that's something, I gotta tell you, we are knee deep in that conversation.
Yeah,
We have an admin meeting tomorrow, and that's the major topic, that universalized approach and promotes access. And we need to continue to monitor and manage that really well, to be honest.
Very good.
We'll move on to transportation.
Yep.
All right, so just briefly, we, in the beginning of all this, back in early part of the summer, there was a need for bus monitors. We were planning to have many more students on the buses that are currently on there. So we, first student had brought on 4 monitors. We kind of put the brakes on that for now because the numbers are still fairly low on the buses. They've gone up a little bit, but at this point, we're kind of monitoring that situation to see if we'll need more monitors down the road. Hopefully not, as kids are very spread out. Some costs for cleaning and sanitizing, but what was great was some of the savings too, because Mariana was able to negotiate on Wednesday, because we don't use the buses on Wednesday.
Right.
So if we go the rest of the year without, in the hybrid model, we don't use the buses on Wednesday, she's able to negotiate, what, a 70% cost, I think, for Wednesday, so save us for 37,000 through, that's just through December, right?
That's good.
Yeah, that was really, there's a great working relationship going on between Mariana and the bus company, and the regional manager, and that's really helped us, because a lot of other districts are struggling, not getting any response back from their bus companies at all, so we've got a good working relationship going with them, so that saved us money. Health aides, we had to bring on, health aides at the elementary schools. We had already had, 2 individuals, a nurse and a health aide at middle school and high school, and that's for the isolation room. Tele services, with the quarantining, the 14 days, we figured, we have a need for a longer period of subs and more subs, so anticipating higher costs there, which led us to personnel. Mainly the personnel was around, the virtual program and the need for some virtual teachers. Having Linda and Nadia, who has been great because she knows the families, and having her in a part-time capacity, assisting us, with that program has been very beneficial. And then the proctors, in the classroom as well. So we've got a couple of teachers that are zooming in and providing their lesson. And the proctors are there in the room managing the class. And that seems, I haven't heard.
I was just gonna ask you, how is that working out?
I haven't heard anything negative, and
Good.
I keep asking my youngest daughter, one of her teachers is zooming in, and she seems to think it's going okay.
Oh, good.
So, yeah.
I think there's a lot of fear with that. I don't really understand it myself, but there was quite a bit.
There was.
Yeah.
To us, it's better than just trying to find highly qualified teachers right now is like impossible. So to just put a warm body in the room and have them now teach a content area, especially at upper grades, not a good move. So we've got the teacher to provide the content, and then just the proctor there to assist. So those were costs for personnel. And then some special education expenses that we're anticipating. That obviously is a variability across the district throughout the year. And I will say too that we're on a budget freeze right from the get-go. Mariana has been scrutinizing everything that comes through. We talk about it, whether we approve it or don't approve it. So we are in a hard budget freeze, just to preface that as well. And you can see what's actually been expended to 218,000 roughly, estimated through 12/31 to 5/23, and then through the end of the year. For a total estimated of 1.3 million. Then if you look at the grants, the elementary and secondary school education relief fund, as well as the governor's emergency fund, totaling almost $500,000 there, 466,395. So we apply that, and we're sitting right now, again, if we stay in this hybrid model for the year, estimated 876,624. So hopefully that isn't the number that we end up having. But we've already talked to the Board of Finance. We had a very good conversation with them the other night. So they're out of the gate in September. They're aware of where our number is. And we'll keep going back to them monthly with conversations. Ariana and I are meeting with Mark Nickerson and Dan Johnson, scheduled meetings with them, so we can keep them apprised as well. And go from there. So, many thanks again to FFO for input, on this sheet, and again, Mariana's work, with this. And it'll be a running document that will just keep going.
So through December, through the end of this year, we'll have, given the estimates and so forth, we'll probably be dipping in to keep the paying the bills and so forth. We're probably going to be holding our own, maybe, and hopefully we'll be about breaking even.
Well, a lot will depend on the freeze, how much we're saving
Right,
for the
that's right.
freeze, yep. And then I don't know where the stipends,
So at what point do we hit a spot where we say, okay, in order for us to continue in this path, Board of Finance or Accountants line, we're out of money. We can't sustain it, okay? And so that would be something, and again, it all depends on what happens during the next several months, but that would be right now, probably, we'd be looking January, February.
we've talked about.
Yeah.
Around January timeframe, to really get a good mid-year picture.
So, and then at that point, then we should have this conversation with, everyone say, so what are the options? We have to go back and raise taxes, or do we dip into the rainy day fund? Or do we have to somehow find more savings, which I don't know how we would do that, but tell me that on those sides. So it's almost like, I think that we've done a good job just starting the conversation.
Start the process, yeah.
But we really should have kind of the decision tree worked out ahead of time, so that we're not all choking together in February. So,
Yep.
Eric?
Yeah, I agree. Did we get feedback? I know we listened in to the Board of Finance and then they were continuing conversations. Did we have or anyone come back to us with feedback based on what we presented?
No, I did not receive anything. I'll send this document, as I mentioned to them tomorrow morning, we'll send it out, because I wanted the board to see it first, before we release. So we'll see if we get any feedback. No, nothing came forth there.
Because there's the 1.5 million or whatever, something like that, we got back from the boardwalk for the.
FEMA.
Yeah. FEMA. And I don't know, I know there's a lot of people, everybody wants their finger on that money, but, this might be something that we can say, maybe we can hold some back for this.
Well, no, I know from reading the paper that some of that FEMA money is going to the public safety building. Yes. At least I think that's what they're gonna vote on, so I'm sending it to the public safety building. But it would be nice if, since FEMA money is for disaster, if some of it could come to pandemic schools. I just don't know how we appeal to the town to save FEMA money, disaster money for pandemic education. I just don't know how we.
That's a Board of Finance decision?
I don't know. From what I understand in the paper, the Board of Selectmen saying that's their decision, not the Board of Finance decision, but I really don't know.
And then maybe make a recommendation
I
to
just
what
know
to
what I
use
read.
with it, and then it goes to the Board of Finance, maybe?
Well, maybe it's worth getting this in front of the Board of Selectmen sooner
Yeah.
rather than later,
Exactly.
to make sure they know that we have this big exposure as well.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't know that.
That's good.
I'll reach out to Mark and talk to him about that,
Yeah.
Mr. Nickerson.
We get one thing from the paper, and we get one thing from everybody else, so I really don't know, but I heard it's the Selectmen's decision on where it goes.
Yeah, but I've got a few things. I definitely can concur with Eric, because I think that that's the route that we need to go, to at least bring that up, because it does come from them. That's what I got from this meeting. Number two, I did listen in on the Board of Finance meeting the other night. I thought you all did a fantastic job. I like the grid. I like the proactiveness of bringing them into the conversation early to kind of make sure that they understand kind of what we're doing, what really what this looks like in pandemic education, right? I stayed on and listened, I wasn't able to stay on the whole time, but I did listen, and I think that they took the information well. I think that it's a lot of money, and I think that, that's why I said bringing them in early on to have these conversations so that they fully understand it versus us just going over and saying, we need this, they're not gonna see it. So I think that that was really fantastic. There was a couple of things that I wrote down on funding, so definitely the FEMA funds, but the state of Connecticut Education Department funding, are we gonna be getting anything from them, or is that something we not know?
There's nothing more than the 2 grants
Just
that
the 2
that we're aware of. And one is a drawdown, the Government Emergency Education Relief Fund, that 294, that's a drawdown. There's from what we heard, there's a little bit of flexibility. If we needed a little bit more, they might give it to us, if we request it, but it's basically you submit the receipts, they give the money.
Yeah, they sent something on Friday saying that there would be something available shortly on the site that I use to file grant. The application would be available. I checked today, it's still not there. So right now, as Jeff said, it is draw down exactly how we'll draw it down.
And that's 100% reimbursable. Right?
Correct. Yep. Yep, and they sent a list of like some items that would be, eligible, like face masks, the gloves, all the PPE that you would expect, even the cleaning for the buses would be allowed.
And just the last thing was being proactive and increasing the budget, and just in case. I think that's smart. And thank you for the extra work with the transportation. You do a tremendous amount, Mariana. You really do. And you look under every single rock. You really do. So, and the relationships that we have with our third party and our contracts, they matter. So that's very helpful. Thank you.
So that's any other, okay, we'll keep bringing this back. Yes.
I do like this one.
Good. Yeah, but we like the format, and we'll keep that going. Obviously, we'll continue to bring that info. Well,
Good, okay. All right, so let's see, that brings us to our next discussion item, which is just continuing monitoring, I guess, of the reopening of schools.
yeah, we're into week 3, which is a full week now. It's we knew it from the start. It's been a lot of work and effort. And kudos to our staff and the teachers and everybody that's in the classrooms and our administrators. I mean, they're going through a lot. It's a change world. I give them credit for their effort, and we want to recognize that. We're moving forward. They're moving forward. We're watching the Wednesdays. Erica, you brought it up earlier, asking grades. I think at the elementary level, we're getting some feedback from some parents that it's too much Zoom time. It's tough for especially our youngest learners, but Amy's engaging, we're engaging with the principals on that. We're watching it. We're going to give it a little bit more time, maybe some more breaks in between. Lessons. There is, it's a half-day schedule, but it's 3.5 hours.
I have to say that I think it's tough because they haven't been in school for so long.
True. Yeah, true. That's the other part.
And I know that my child's teacher is putting in breaks into, like last week, she had the music teacher pop on for like the music lesson, so it kind of broke it up and it made it easier.
Yeah.
But I think they're having that tough time because they haven't been in school in 6 months, so they don't know how to sit for 3.5 hours. Like, it's hard.
It's hard.
But
I've heard similar actually at the high school level that, they get like 3 minutes in between class, which is, barely enough time to maybe run to the restroom and grab a glass of water and stuff. That my personal view is, if you do all kinds of studies, read all the studies about engagement and all that, it's like after an hour and a half, people are pretty fried and you need to do something else. If you're doing a mental thing, don't do something physical for 10 or 15 minutes.
More to bed.
Yeah.
So, 2 hours.
I would think, given nobody's traveling anywhere, is there any reason we can't give 10 or 15 minutes between, so it doesn't have to be a half day. I don't know how logistically that would work, but in between classes, give a little more time. My concern about that is, can you get everybody back together, or does everybody then run off and do a bunch of things? So I understand that could be, the reverse happens. I don't know, but it does seem like it's, or maybe there's a mid-learning half-hour break or something like, I don't know, something to give the kids a chance to recharge. And I can't imagine if you have some real highly technical topic in its last, AP Calc or AP Bio or whatever it is, and now you've been sitting for 3 hours, and now you have that, and your brain's kind of half fried. I really can't imagine that. So that is if you got even at the high school level.
And then those are pretty quick. It's a half-day schedule. So what, about 24 minutes?
Yeah.
But then, take out a couple minutes for getting set up and so forth. But still, it's a lot of time. They're sitting in front of a screen. And that was one of our concerns from the start, was the screen time in all of this, and how much kids are sitting in front of this device. So I think we're going to keep watching it. We're in a full week right now, our first full week. So it's kind of a gauge to see how we're doing.
The other thing that we had talked about in regards to timing is let's provide what's something parents and students know, and that's what a half day is.
Yeah.
So it's like, let's start with something they know. Then if we find that we need to chunk the learning more through the day, because it's better off doing level literacy groups, one at 9, one at 9:30, but let's sort of start them out of the gate, maybe something they know. And then at least have the structure that is like, okay, I'm wrapping my head around a half today, and then allow them sort of that. The other good thing is we just got out another addendum from the State Department in regards to engagement and what they expect the amount of time to be. So that's sort of helpful to be able to.
What's the number of that?
So they are looking for, when students are remote, to have at the elementary level, pre-K to 5, 4.5 hours of direct engaged learning. And that, I can define direct engaged learning.
For how, during over what period of time?
Per day,
Per day.
that they are remote. And then 6th to 12th grade is 5 hours a day. But that is defined as age appropriate, and that could be interaction with teachers and or students, direct instruction, synchronously or asynchronously, independent student work, opportunities for Q&A, feedback during teacher office hours. So it's a widespread definition of that time.
So that's key what you just said though, because it's how it's delivered.
Yeah.
And I've been noticing that myself, just like some teachers, they put out this awesome video, right? And the kids are right on it and they're engaged right off the bat, right? But if they've got a lot of notations and different that they gotta read, but there's nothing else.
Yeah.
It's very hard, to keep continuing on through each class. So I think that was that was really key, because right off the bat, when you say those numbers, those are alarming numbers. That's a lot of time here to be in front of a computer.
You're thinking of just staring at it.
Exactly. I think that's how people are going to kind of see that. So I just think that was really key what you said.
It's amazing. This is a side note, but I've been spending a lot of time with my daughter, who has a full-time job in mathematics, sort of survey stuff. She's a data analyst, okay? She works about 9 hours a day, and that's what she does to stare at what she is at a hurdle. And she's either in meetings or doing work or emails, but it's 9 hours of screen. And she'll have two large kids all set up with 2 big screens and stuff. So it's kind of interesting. This may actually be again an accelerated rate for what the world holds for many of the jobs out there. Go ahead.
2 more questions on Wednesdays. What's our fear or rules on video on or not video on? Is it up to the student, or what's sort of the rules on it?
We give it as an option. That's what the message we've sent out, that it's an option for kids, and here's why. Because, there are some students out there that they might be fearful of what might be seen. Maybe their parents are a hoarder or something of that nature. They don't want a background scene behind them, and they can't find a good place. Or maybe there's one location in their house that has good Wi-Fi connection. So the teachers are encouraging you to see their faces, at least, show yourself, but there are students that, it is an option. Or encouraging, put up a back screen. You can do it through Zoom, put up a back screen on your computer and use that. So there's engagement.
Yeah, maybe if we could do more, because that's one of the things I've heard about the Wednesdays, is that there's a lot of students who aren't on campus. I'm talking more at the high school, so again, that's where I want to keep it. But there's a lot of students who are not on campus. And I think that kills some of the energy and the dynamics of the class. So we all, and it happens at work too, you kind of feel like that person's disengaged because they're not, you can't see them. Before there were cameras, nobody really thought about it. You're just on a telecom and people are doing whatever they want anyway. But now that you can see people, I think there does sap some of the energy. So maybe if we can get students to understand how do you put the blank background together, and occasionally, again, sometimes you need to turn it off for a few minutes in class, that's okay, but you should generally be on. I think that would be good. The other feedback I heard is that some teachers are still trying to figure out what to do with the short class. I think what you said is probably right. You kind of find out what students are struggling with, and then you reinforce it that day. You kind of spend these more problems or talk more about that topic or whatever. But I've heard that there's some teachers who are like, I don't know what to do with this. So we can maybe make sure in our PD and whatever that we learn whatever best practices people have learned that we're sharing and how to optimize that time, because it does feel short. But doing nothing is bad, right? So there's got to be something that's.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask, and I'll ask you specifically, but how are the teachers feeling? What is the feedback that you're getting from our teachers?
They're overwhelmed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it's
They're working-
emotionally filled.
Yep.
Sure.
They're working hours upon hours.
Yep, they're overwhelmed. It's a lot of extra planning.
Yep.
Because you have 2 cohorts. You also have you have Viking 4s who are in 4 days a week. You have students zooming in. So there is a worry about, I have students in front of me, I have students zooming in, I have students in front of me that have been in front of me for 4 days now. And then I also have students who are working from home that I'm providing feedback to.
Right.
So I would say right now, in the 2-week intro and sort of getting everybody back, our strong focus was on, let's set up Google Classroom, Seesaw, Zoom with some baseline level of success. Let's focus on the social emotional. Let's connect with our kids, build genuine connections with them. Let's get back in the pace. Let's be clear about what the expectations are. And I think even trying to plan that for multiple environments quickly put a spotlight on. This hybrid model is the only one we haven't done.
Yeah, right.
So we're starting all over again in like a new model. So I think that they're struggling with planning. And I think they're struggling to feel successful because they're learning and having to do, learning and doing. So I think that there's definitely a feeling of this is a lot. And they're juggling your own children, so maybe in a hybrid or
Yeah, and
5-day
they're
model.
juggling everything else,
It's
with
a lot
parents and
more
everything
work than
else.
being in full time.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So,
It's a lot more.
yeah.
I mean, just for example, just keeping track of the assignments are due on this date for this group, they're due on this date for this group, so you gotta set up double, trying to manage some of that stuff and
Yeah.
just try to keep track
And
of.
even just the simple things of like attendance.
Yeah.
Like,
Sure.
I just had to send out a 5-page guidance document on attendance. It's like if you're in cohort A or B, the parent says in middle school and high school, the parent of the middle school. Okay, know this. I mean, it was like, so I mean, a simple task that you might have been able to execute, build and execute and say, this is what the expectation is now. And so it's.
And from a teacher's perspective, what's on the screen right there is a perfect example. I'm teaching Three Rivers remotely. That's what I'm teaching. I'm
Right.
teaching to a black hole.
Right.
I have no idea whether the person is, in the bathroom, in
Right.
the kitchen, or zooming in.
It's the, trying to see them is, yeah.
So just before you go on to someone else, I just want to preface like the importance, and I know that you know, and I know that we all feel it, but in supporting them in any way, in whether or not it's just listening to the emotional moment that they might be having, or how to, create this and do this. It's so overwhelming, I think, for everyone, and everybody's having a different experience. So patience and kindness and support go a long way, and I know you know that.
Yep. Agreed.
It's nice, they're helping each other a lot, because some have a much greater skill set than others do when it comes to technology usage, and so we're seeing a lot of that as well, which is good, but it's still, there's more need, clearly.
So I just want to hit on the Wednesday. Amy said that they're trying, the teachers are working on like that social emotional aspect, and I can speak for my freshman who was a hot mess coming into the school year because she didn't have that orientation, she didn't have her friends anymore. But her Wednesday 20-minute classes are a lot of getting to know these like administrators, because they haven't been there, they don't know their teachers, they don't know the school, they don't know each other, because they've been in that KIVA system, so they really don't know a lot of things that they're going to school. So the teachers have been spending a lot of that time getting to know the student, asking them how they feel about high school, how they feel about the learning process, how can I help you navigate this, and how can I help you figure out this. So that's helped my freshman tremendously, because now, those first 2 weeks, she was a no-go. She wanted nothing to do with this. But now she's starting to come out, because the teachers have been so helpful with getting to know them and helping them navigate this. So it's been really good. I can see positively about the Wednesday, though it's short. It's been the perfect thing for her to help her figure out her way in school.
It's really important, and we message right out the gate during those PD days. We have to be a culture of we, because you're not going to make it on your own.
Right?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
There's
Yes.
way too much to execute. There's way too many moving parts.
Yes.
If you're not leaning on it, I mean, I was starting every PD with a social emotional check-in. Where are you? Right now in the chat, see where you are. Overwhelmed, clueless, feel insufficient. I mean, they would just be spewing in. But it's important that we encourage them to continue to lean on each other. I had a total flunk of a Zoom meeting one day, and my natural reaction, I emailed all sorts of my teachers, and it was like, I was just you.
Yeah.
I totally just messed up a chat, dogs started barking, this happened, I mean, we have to be a we in this. It's just.
But she has enjoyed those days because they help her when she goes to school
Speaks that's one or
Thursday
the other.
to figure out where she's going,
Good,
and
that's
then
good to
she
hear.
meets it face to face. Because you think about it, she had school Monday, Tuesday, and then she had this full day, and then she went to school and met everybody on Thursday, so it was tough, because all your friends were already there. And now but I think they're doing a really good job on Wednesdays, helping them figure out things. As I can speak for my freshman, my senior, he doesn't talk to me. So
And also too, I mean,
my senior doesn't talk to me.
they're challenged and struggling with trying to create relationships with students that they haven't, you know what I mean? But all different aspects. So that one-on-one in those moments, because I've seen a lot of that too, whether or not it's written or verbal through the video. They're really taking a lot of time, which I think that's
Just thinking, hearing this, so our clubs, we just said, are all virtual, or, so do they have to be? And can we have some after-school activities where students can, with masks on, socially distanced, but we can do some type of interactive game, something, I don't know, something to lead some stuff where kids get to know each other more than just by sitting in classroom or virtually or in person and looking at a club, because that stuff, that is really important. That does make you feel part of something rather than I'm just this laptop person walking around. And, so I don't know if there's some, because I'm okay. I mean, we're all sitting here. I don't know, there's probably something that can be done, especially freshmen. You know, you think by the time you're juniors and seniors in high school, again, 7th and 8th grade, probably more okay.
Our kids are dying to get going with activities they've been asking me at school, and the tricky part is the schools our schools only open at 4.
Yeah.
So it's trying to schedule. You can't have all the clubs meet on Wednesday because a lot of the kids do all the clubs, so or not, but you know what I mean. So trying to schedule it out, and then the issue too is like that's extra cleaning too, right? Someone's got to come in and clean this place up for each club that meets. I agree with you though. This kind of thing is way better than, you know, just being here. If the kids could talk about some activity that they want to do, whether it's a Spanish club or whatever.
And I think that's that's got to be next, especially when we look. Remember now, it's the middle of September. On October 1, regionally, we're doing a reassessment, and the plan still is to start bringing all kids back to school by mid-October. So that's still out there. We're already talking about that. And maybe I mentioned to the regional group about maybe staggering. Maybe we started at elementary. The middle of and got elementary our most vulnerable learners who really need to be in front of teachers, and then go middle, and then high school. I don't know. High school is going to be very challenging to bring all those students back. But that's the goal. It's just on the governor's call at 4 o'clock. He's still encouraging, bring kids.
Is that going to still be with masks?
Yes, exactly. Exactly like it is right now. The hybrid model disappears. We probably would have more students go remote, and we have to be prepared for that. But that it would be to bring all students back. Now you can't socially distance necessarily in class, but that's why you have the mask. There's no way to guarantee 6 feet apart. But there's where maybe clubs there, we can get the late bus maybe back going again, because we don't have the late bus going. We need some mask breaks, obviously, but maybe some kids would be willing to continue with that and do some of those things. If the numbers stay, you're everybody's watching the numbers. I mean, they're trending up a little bit, but nothing to any degree of, that warrants, we shouldn't be thinking this way.
No, I agree with like slow integration and really kind of taking it as it goes. And I know that we're going to be evaluating as we go.
Mm-hmm.
When Eric spoke about clubs, I'm spot on with you. Clubs at the high school level meet during lunchtime. So it's not an extra curricular, I guess,
Well,
within.
but if there's now 3 lunches, so you have to figure that out.
We got to change that. It's
So-
gonna be a different time.
Right, so it's something that I think is worth taking a look at, because what I'm seeing, and which is great, I mean, I love seeing kids having a little bit of normalization back, and whether or not that's a little bit of conditioning or, not running together, but maybe 2 or 3 and distanced apart. It's that normalization that's getting them back. And that wellness piece with kids, it goes together. And I always think of Dr. Miko, and we used to talk about educating the whole child, right? We used to say that all the time, because there's other parts. It's not just the academic part. And kids need to have an outlet. So right now, we've got a lot of conditioning going on, but there's kids that don't participate in sports or conditioning. So there's got to be a different outlet or a different option or a different opportunity. So I think that it's definitely worth having a conversation very soon, because I think that we're getting there, right? We're going a little bit at a time, we're watching the numbers, we're having conversations, and if we can slowly integrate things back, that's a good thing.
Bill.
Yeah, no, that's all right. We say we're watching the numbers, but we're watching the numbers in a very, is there any talk of actually testing, or bringing anything for the school, because we're watching numbers, but the way we're watching numbers is not a very great way to be watching numbers. You know,
Well, I think you're right.
You know,
I think
so,
it's the only thing
whoops.
we've got.
Yep, now we've got 10, and who knows how many more we got, because we just found out we had 10, you know, so.
The
That's
testing has come up.
that's kind of watching after the fact numbers, but, you know, like too late.
I think we run into some major issues trying to test, you know, students or staff. Some would say, no, I refuse. I know we have parents that would refuse. I don't know. I don't know of any other districts that are doing it. I don't think any of the areas do it. Maybe across the state.
So I just happened to be listening to a story today, you know, like some of the, I guess I was on the University of Arizona where they're doing sewage or something like that, and then, you know, a lot of things like that where they could just, okay, well, somebody here is, you know, and then you can versus, oh, the whole building is clean, kind of thing, or whatever, but it's a little different because of dorms versus, you know, not everybody uses the restroom necessarily, but in some ways, there's got to be a better way than just waiting and crossing our fingers.
Eric, you ever had a?
Yeah. Go ahead, Steve.
No, I was gonna say, the only, Chris probably gonna say, the only problem with testing is it's clean today. But tonight, you can go out. So you have to self-quarantine for 14 days after you got tested to be clean. You know what I'm saying?
I think the idea is so that you could test like everybody.
Well, you have
or
to test
a
everybody every
significant-
day.
a significant, yeah, but a significant sample size, and then you get back a result that says, we didn't have one, nobody was positive. Then you'd say, oh, okay, let's wait another week, let's do another big test. Whoa, nobody's positive, okay? Maybe we can bring back the elementary kids now, bring them all back in, and then, you know, so you're basically, you know, using it as a way of being part of making a decision about whether or not they increase their own time.
And you have this
Like engagement.
Right, we have that.
who's paying for tests?
Right.
Yeah, but you can do it, it isn't even just a statistic.
Yeah, it's what psychology we're doing.
Yeah.
But, so, I have a thought, so, you know, one of the things that we're driving towards in our curriculum is trying to get our students to solve problems, you know, try to be able to come up with stuff. So can we push it, and it's probably more in the high school, but maybe middle school, elementary might be a little hard, but can we push it, put some of these problems on the students and get a group of students to say, how can we have clubs with the restrictions, you know, of managing social, you know, give them some things and problems that we're trying to solve and say, you come up with some ideas. Like, that's real world. That's, you know, it's easy. So often what happens is, if their ages, right, is they're gonna say, oh, well, we can just have it at 3:30, we can just all get together and we'll separate. It's like, well, there's no late bus, you know, they don't think through all the issues. So if we can kind of give them some of the issues and then have them think of, okay, how do I actually solve a problem? And maybe some of these things, I'd be love to hear some of their ideas that make you come up with some creative solutions.
I think that's a big.
Yeah, very good.
I think it's one of the positives that I think we're going to actually see coming out of this pandemic situation is that students and children are going to have that thinking process of the fix, you know, because they're actually being tasked to do it. I can't even tell you how many times already we have been challenged in this area with navigating me via phone, then no, that's not gonna work, and they figure it out. They end up figuring it out. And that's gonna be a good thing, because for a long time, not so much. Somebody else figured it out. So I think that that's gonna be a problem.
Definitely a conversation for, you know, our next board meeting too, as we think of that's, you know, right at the beginning of October almost. So I think that's gonna be a robust conversation just to have, we can tie in some of these components too, about after school activities. I love the idea of, you know, if we could offer some more things to kids and do it in a safe way, it's the best thing than, rather than going home on the bus at the end of the day, you engage them with other kids, it's a great idea.
Because kids really have nothing after school, if you think about it. So the elementary school students would usually have an aftercare program, and I want to say till about 6. That is completely off the table. The middle school kids have an option with either 8 club or cross country, whatever their choice was. There was a lot of choices in the middle school. Or they could walk over to the community center for that resource, which is no longer a resource. So it's a lot, right? And now, even at the high school level, there's just not a lot of resources for children and families. So anything that we can maybe try to do.
And I just got a message from Deb Kelly. She said they're working on a virtual club info center, and they're hoping that, some small clubs, can meet in person, can start meeting in person. So
Right, so they're
that's
already
good.
working.
Yeah, they're working on
Fantastic.
it, so.
When do we get another walk, or are you planning to do another major survey with parents? Or other groups?
We've shared some comical skits on surveys during the hybrid model. Colleagues and things of that nature, but yes, I mean, one of the things I think we're trying to figure out is so it's interesting, we're in our 3rd week,
Yeah.
where we're actually only completing like our 2nd cycle with kids. So it's like,
Right.
and I think that's one of the things that we learned last time when we did a survey out of the gate was, okay, there's an acclimation period and then there's like a norms period, and at what point is the appropriate time, So we haven't committed to a time frame on it, but I know
So you're saying, not this week.
No, our teachers just made us do their 2nd Wednesday.
Yeah.
So-
Okay, so you're kind of looking at it,
If you think about it, if we're actually realistically thinking, about coming.
It would probably be the same time as his memo out to parents in regards to, hey, don't forget.
Yeah, I wanted to send a reminder to parents, hey, remember, we're reassessing on October 1. We told you we were going to do that. And, maybe it's along those lines. We will be potentially looking for information, from you and see where it goes.
Yeah, just one of the, obvious concerns is that if, by going on site, and then what does that mean to virtual lighting numbers?
Yes.
They're going to find.
Goes down either you're in, either out. What does that look like?
Early October is
Right now, we have.
awfully quick.
That's fine. I know, that's.
To make a substantial adjustment,
Yeah, I think regionally, the discussions about trying to get them in sooner than later, because we don't know how long we could have them in. If things, start to get worse in November or December, try and give them a semblance of a school.
I see, yeah.
That was part of it, but it's,
What about something where maybe the start is, instead of Wednesdays being an away day, Wednesdays actually everybody's here. So you have one day to kind of see how that all, everybody still stays Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday separate, but Wednesday. I'm just curious how it's all, before we enact this whole big thing here. I don't know how it's gonna work. I can't see every, having 1,000 kids or plus in the high school and 800 and something students in the middle school. It's hard for me to imagine us enforcing, how you enforcing masks and all that stuff.
it's the hard part. Bill, you're doing it in Oldham, and I know you're not as big, but.
Yeah, so
You're all in
the
over there.
kids have been really good in the classes, from what I can tell. The challenging times are lunch. Because they just, as soon as they're done with lunch, they just tend to drift together and stuff. So it's difficult. And, a lot of them are hanging with people that they hang out with. As soon as the bell rings, they're gonna jump in their car and drive home with them. So you're telling them they can't, sit with their friend who they just got out of the car with. So it's but the nice say most of the kids are respectful, because I tell them, right, I get it, I know you're gonna go, with this guy in the car, and the bell ring, but right now you get this little,
You're protecting
most of
others.
them are pretty good.
Not about you, you're protecting others by wearing a mask.
So, but I could see where, certainly the full school lunch would just be very challenging to try to monitor that.
Yeah, I don't think we could ever go back to that. We couldn't go back to that full high school, everybody eating at the same time. They're really, I'll speak for the administrators, but they're really liking the 3 different lunch waves. We'll see. I don't know, that might change when we do get rid of COVID and we're all back in. They might continue with the lunch waves.
Okay.
So
I like
that's,
the lunch days.
yeah,
Yeah, there's a plus, and, the plus is, more insanity, but there's enough tables, but the minus is the clubs are gonna have to look different.
the puzzle look, yeah, you're right, exactly. So maybe some virtual components remain in place, once this is gone too. We're already talking about our administrative meetings, that, there's a reason we got to pull all of our administrators out of their buildings to come meet, and, we're doing it well virtually.
Jeff, can you give a quick summary on where we are with sports?
Yeah, and we talked about that, thank you for bringing that up. So football and volleyball right now, for all sports only, are the problematic sports. So let's just talk about those 2 first. And we're still in conditioning activities, kids are out of the field, you've seen them, I'm sure. But there was a meeting Friday between the governor and CIAC and the Department of Health. There's supposed to be a statement coming out, again, on football. That was the topic of this conversation this afternoon. I don't think that's going to change at all with football. They canceled football. I don't think they're going to bring it back. There's talk about trying to offer it maybe in February. But for football, if anything, they might drop it down, to a lower level, not that high risk category, but a lower level. Maybe it's 7-on-7, kind of like, flag football sort of thing, where you still, ECC's talking about that as maybe an option. But we need anything we do, we need the Department of Public Health to be able to get behind it. We don't want to go do something without their kind of blessing. So football right now, as we know it, is canceled, and that could change tomorrow, or something else could come out tomorrow. Volleyball is the problematic component for us right now, more so, because out of the 24 districts that were on our regional call last week, 4 of them have said, okay, it seems like the Department of Public Health and CIAC are in agreement, we can move forward with volleyball. But the other 20 districts, and we're part of the 20, are saying, wait a minute, that never came out from the Department of Public Health. Volleyball players could play inside with masks on. So we're waiting for a statement, which is also supposed to be coming out, that says that, the Department of Public Health will support that and get behind volleyball players playing with masks indoors. If they don't get behind that, there's no way we can go against the Department of Health, in my opinion. I think that's a bad move. It's the liability component, exactly. And I don't know how you stand up and say, well, the Department of Health never got behind it, but we decided to do it anyways. And I'm not a medical professional, we're not medical professionals. That's not our job to do. So those are those 2. The other sports are on target.
What are the other sports? Cross country?
So you got cross country.
Just on volleyball, just so, I think the challenge with volleyball was that it's indoors. If volleyball was outdoors, they'd be fine with it, because it is more socially distanced. The issue is now you're bringing students from different schools into buildings. I think that's the Department of Health's concern, is the inside nature of volleyball, right? It's not that we're physically near each other. We're no different than soccer or anything else, I don't think.
It's the yelling, because they're projecting. So that was the concern.
It's not the infield, because I thought they said if you played outside, you could play.
That's
Department of Health is okay with it outdoors.
And I think some had the ability to be able to do that. Some
So
were talking
most
about-
people can't do
Most
that.
people
That's-
can't,
That's
yeah.
another issue, but,
Yeah,
but I think it's the indoor nature.
yeah, that's what they won't get behind. So we'll see if they make a statement that, it's okay to wear masks. That's what we're doing. So, yeah, so you got cross country, you got soccer too. So soccer is going on. That's another one, that's all outdoors.
What about rowing?
You got swimming.
Swimming going on, exactly, swimming, there's no rowing.
So there's no rowing.
Field hockey.
Field hockey's playing, and then,
Cheer is.
cheer is going, as well.
That's a lot of yelling.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's all outdoors and there's no, and I don't know what they're gonna, because if there's no football, there's nobody to cheer for them, but they're just.
They're cheering for soccer.
They're cheering for
I hear
soccer
that.
and
Okay.
for field hockey.
All right, so, and that begs the question too, Eric, you and I talked a little bit about this, about fans on the field. The CIC does not have having fans in the bleachers at all. So as of right now, we wouldn't allow anybody into that turf field area. Now, if a car pulls up and parks on the south end of the football field, are we gonna tell them to leave? Not necessarily, no. I mean, but if you start to get a crowd around the fence, that's a different story. And we have to, we have to enforce or enact or get the police involved because you've got too many people.
Yeah, the tailgating at the south end zone or whatever, which.
Yep. That's the area.
Typically, yeah, that will be.
And we know that's gonna happen.
So, so I guess the thought is, right, is that being outside, even though soccer, there's some close contact, it's outside and it's not prolonged close contact versus in football, if you're on the line, you're there for seconds and then you're there again.
And you're
there again.
tackling
I'm assuming
and
you're right
protecting.
here, you're right up in
Face to face with the same player.
over and over is the risk. So first, because I emailed with you, but I do want to just reinforce. So on the sidelines, everyone is supposed to be wearing masks, but on the field, they will not be wearing masks.
Correct.
Right? Who is going to make, so are we putting the burden, which I hope we're not, on a coach? Does the coach have to look around and make sure that people are wearing their masks and they haven't done this, or, and is that who we have, or do we have the assistant coach, or is there, what is the enforcement, and what happens if a student doesn't abide when the player says, I'm not, because
It's tough on the coaches there, but I don't know how else to, I think it's gotta be one of their main responsibilities to enforce it, because we don't have anybody else. The AD, Steve Harris keeps talking to the coaches, reminding them. We've had a few occurrences before the sports season got going. Parents walk the track, people walk the track. I got a couple pictures, so I'm calling Steve. Steve's reaching out to the coaches again. It turns out it wasn't even our kids, it's a Park and Rec, or not a Park and Rec, a youth program. But it's got to come down on the coaches that are really reinforcing and pushing that issue. I don't know who else can do it.
and then what if the other team isn't doing it?
It's a good question. I mean,
It's their school, it's up to them, is that where we?
well, there's where I think the AEDs might get together, then they funnel it up to us, the superintendents, then we talk, and say, listen, you're gonna come play with us. You gotta participate, and you gotta make sure you're wearing your mask and doing the right thing.
Yes.
I would hope that it would do the same thing that the luck we've had within school, that things have gone well with the mask wearing. The kids are doing pretty well for the practices, but we can't get lax with that. And I think that's the key.
Yeah, that's my biggest concern. I'm
Yeah.
real happy that I've got come around that I'm more comfortable with the outdoor sports that can happen. And I think it's a decent plan. So now my biggest concern then is enforcement. Like, how do you make sure who's doing that? If I'm coaching a game, am I looking over at my other players and making sure, which may be fine, and maybe they have, an assistant coach where you have a sideline captain person who's, responsible to do that. I don't know, but that's the part that, is important.
I
Because
think
we want it to
that
continue,
they
we
want
want it
to
to
let
happen.
I think
Okay.
that they will because they want to. But that's the feeling
Yeah.
that I get. I know that there are those few, and I'm sure somebody would probably send me a photo and say, see, just like
Oh,
you're
yeah.
doing. Listen, in the big picture of all the kids, I mean, the majority of these kids are wearing masks. I don't know the feedback from, on that, internally at the school, but I haven't heard anything negative. I honestly haven't. I also
I
think
know that
people-
in our school district, we are getting constant reinforcement from the administration about the mask piece with zero tolerance. They're like, make sure the kids understand that you know, this is not a discussion or a detention, this, you're doing it, or you're going to the office and you're gone. And I think if you, as a coach, you got a kind of lot of, you know, as long as the AD and it's coming out, the list of coaches, this is the way it is. You know, as soon as one kid is out for a week or whatever, gone, as long as everybody knows that that's the expectation.
And maybe
But it
we
needs to be reinforced.
Maybe we need the, you know, first offense is you miss a day, second offense, you miss a week, third offense, your season's over. I don't know, something along those lines, to make it really clear that it's serious. The other question I had, which I probably don't have an answer, but here's my, so let's say in soccer, we're playing Team X, and, you know, 2 days later, one of the players on Team X, it gets tested, and either a suspected case or a case, a confirmed case of COVID. I don't know what, so then what? Are we gonna have our team tested? Do we have to quarantine our team?
You might have to, yeah. You
But
might have
the
to
quarantine, yeah,
Yep.
it doesn't fall.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, because that's a primary contact, if they were running around the field together. So secondary contact, you have to do that, but primary contact, and they're just all together, you have to quarantine.
And so maybe making sure that parents actually understand that piece of it. I'm sure most parents, maybe not all, but most parents probably say, yeah, go ahead, get on the field and go play, it's fine, the risk is low. But just to know that that would be then 14-day quarantine.
Yep.
Is there a double negative option to get out of that? If you on your own go and get two tests, does that get you away from the quarantine?
They talked about that, but no, right now the recommendation is quarantine for the 14 days.
Yes.
To be safe, yeah, exactly. Because you can get false negatives in the tests and different things.
So then you're virtual hiking for 2 weeks, is that?
Well, we've started to have some situations of quarantining, and it's really a 10-day, it's, you know, 2 weeks in a row, 5 and 5 sort of thing. So we haven't dropped them into, or called them a virtual hiking, but we haven't got a point of, do we just have them zoom in at high school level? I mean, it's either have them do, you know, ongoing work, or maybe have them zoom in. Yeah, zoom back on calls. So I'll have to see where, you know, we have those cases. Hopefully they won't come up. They might. Very well.
But the clearer we can be in all of this, I think is really, especially for, you know, for Steve and the coaches to really understand, this is what our expectations are, this is how, you know, because there's the positives, I think, outweigh the negatives of doing this. So it's just making sure we can mitigate, you know, any issues, and making sure it's clear that parents understand it. If this player on the other team has it, then you're quarantining for 2 weeks.
Right.
You know, it stinks.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna bring it up at the, AAA, we'll talk about at the end of the agenda, but maybe it would behoove of us to have Steve come in and talk about kind of what it's looking like for this year. I think it would be beneficial. What do you guys think?
Okay, yeah, definitely.
And maybe a month in, you know.
Yeah.
early,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
okay, now we're a month in, how's it, you know, going well?
Yeah.
I think
Because winter sports are gonna be really tough.
Yeah.
Those are gonna be really tough, so.
I also too, like, I think that how people are looking at it is that, you know, over the summer, there has been play. So whether or not it's been this or that, and even currently youth is doing this, well, how come this can't happen here? So there's a different set of rules, or there's lots of different conversations happening. So I think that, you know, people are having a hard time. But at the end of the day, we have to make decisions that keep our children safe.
And virtual Viking students participate in sports?
Not currently, no. No. Is that most of medical, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
They can do clubs though, so long
Yes.
as the clubs stay virtual.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Good. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, no, thank you. Good thoughts, good points.
Okay. Move on. Okay, next item, last one was, for discussion, and that was, the follow-up on, it really kind of stems from, what are we going to do as a board in terms of our goals, for this year, for this year. Normally, we would be pretty much in the midst of having some goals written down, and we would be reviewing them and having discussions about, what does this mean and all this stuff. Back in August, after hearing lots of information through a board meeting, but also in other conversations across all of us and everything, Jeff and I just sat down and wrote this little one-pager on the directions of the board coming during this year, just to try to bring clarity to it, and it kind of just distilled everything down and say, well, there's two items that we need to focus on this year. One is the COVID situation and what to do with that, how to respond, and all the things. And I think we're doing, I think we're doing about as good job on that as we can. The other one was the efforts to focus on diversity, inclusion, equity, across, really across the board. And it's one that we are addressing. We are in the process of doing it. We have Wednesday, we have our first lesson, I guess.
Training the
board. I know the administrative team's been doing some things as well. So we really, we are focused on these two things. I don't know, Jeff and I really haven't had any more conversation about this. It's kind of like there's a series of steps that we need to do in both of these things. It's so hard. I'm sure that it's very difficult to say, well, how are we going to measure how we're doing? I don't know. It's hard. But again, I think laying out the timelines and what's occurring against both of these things, that's probably where we're at. And also the other thing is not for us to get too crazy in trying to help the administrative team. And I don't know, not maybe stretch it too far. I think sometimes you need to kind of be supportive and understanding, and listen really hard to how things are going. Anyway, Adam, Jeff, do you have any things you wanted to say before we open it up here?
That's appreciated right there, Tim. You kind of, we're in week 3. Really just we're all in, and having these two focus areas I think is important, and I think we really, the equity component, we're out of the gate with. The membership is coming together for the equity team. I do need to ask one of the board members to join on that. And then we've got training for our faculty on the 9th of October. So that's in the process of almost being finalized that we've set up. And then we've got Wednesday night for the board, to meet, and that's ready to go as well. So we'll talk a little bit about that here in my report. But I think those are the major components right now, and we appreciate the support on allowing us to stay focused on those two items only as we move forward this year.
There are, I would just add one thing is that if, I hope, there is a light at the end of this tunnel, okay? And as we start to see that light, I think that the board will need to start having conversations about what does a strategic plan look like, or what kind of at a very high level, the strategic plan look like for the district in the coming future, because we basically have taken, the whole district and kind of shook the whole thing up amazingly. And there's, as Barry always says, there's opportunities here to read. And I think everyone's been saying that in conversations we've had. I think it's premature to start doing anything around that at this point. Just because we have to do it all as a team. We have the board, the administrative team, and I really do not want to do anything to rock the boat with the administrative team time and effort in dealing with getting, I mean, just the sheer magnitude of the number of all the new computers that are coming in at the end of the month, right? There's amazing amounts of detail that are still reported. So anyway, that's kind of how, that's my feel on this. But I think that I hope, Pfizer kicks in with the vaccine. The CEO seems 60% probability that we'll have a favorable vaccine by in October. But those things would then start to trigger. We see the light at the end of the tunnel type of thing, and we would then, I think, start to move in that direction. But anyway, I don't know. Laura, anybody have any comments? I see Eric has had his hand up.
I think I'm completely aligned. I wonder if there's like a workshop that we can schedule for us. November, just something on the, I don't know what the time is. It's not now. It's not a few weeks from now. There's too much. We got to sort it in the school. But maybe there's something that we can do as for the holidays. But I don't know when it is. It's something where we can get together and start having conversations about what we can do. We'll have gone through some training. Staff has gone through some, there's some things that we are doing, and then maybe that'll give us some time to brainstorm and get aligned together. We haven't each had conversation as a group about this either. So that's what I would think is, I don't know when it is, but sometime we can just, those have been very productive. When we go to the high school library or something, sit together and just talk about a single topic. I think those have been very helpful.
That's all.
Yeah, I can't agree more. I'm completely in alignment. Completely. The board retreat spoke volumes. We had too much. And I've said it again at my own expense, I was absolutely the example of what some of our, if this is an example of what our teachers, what our faculty and our children are going to have to go through. We cannot be focused, you can't be focusing on so many different things. We need to hone in, and I think that was the absolute right thing to do. I find the workshops very valuable. In fact, it was pretty much, I think we started them when I came on. I remember not feeling connected, unified with a team. I feel like a team now, whereas at that time I did not feel that. And I think that we've gotten there because of workshops, because of that time that we have to have conversations and strategize of where we're going to go in seconds. So I'm hoping that we can do a workshop in a classic way, the historical way that we always going to have. Of course, with providing social distancing for those that need different things, but I'm completely in line with what we're doing. And I want to thank you for addressing it because it was on the agenda the night that I had, and I wanted to kind of, we talked about it a little bit, but I really felt like you needed to be here and the majority of the board to be together to have that conversation. So thank you.
Do you have any thoughts?
Nothing that hasn't already been said. I think the board retreat in November is a great idea.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and we get a little time. And again, that'll give us, hopefully, fingers crossed that we'll be a good, and hopefully a good spot in the district and everything.
I feel like we're playing a lot of, understandably right now, like there's fires that we're putting out, we're addressing a lot of things that are very urgent and need
our attention, but we don't really have the opportunity to just sit and start thinking more in the future from practice.
Yeah.
So I like having the space to do that.
I definitely think what the FFO committee did with Mariana and what we did in the right for finance, to me is exactly what we should do. On the one of the items. Barry, you got your hand up.
Actually, I'm kind of reluctant to talk because every time I seem to say anything, I kind of get these nonverbals about my comments are negative about the board and the district. And believe me, all my thoughts and work is that it tends to try to make us to be the very, very best district in the state. And I know we're doing good things, but I also know that we could do some things a lot better.
Yep.
And it's just, when I make those suggestions to be better, it's not a negativity about what we're doing, it's an idea about how we can move forward. I got thinking on this the other day with, I'm working with the Governor's Workforce Council in the state that has business and industry on it. Business and industry is not really happy with the education system in the state, and down the road, there likely will be some efforts to identify some high functioning districts for additional funding to serve as pilots for what could be potential in the state. We could get there, and we could get there if we could come to some sense of an ability to answer that question that Neil brought to us in the budget hearings. What is the outcome? What are we about?
Right.
We have so many inputs, so many independent variables. You know, I mean, I've raised questions at the last couple of weekends. I mean, we've got, I go back to the district improvement plans, the school improvement plans. We've got 50 some odd initiatives there. Recently, we've added accelerated learning to that. Then we've added personalized learning. I mean, it's if you get into the break rooms with teachers, I mean, they roll their eyes and they have a term called, the latest flavor of the day, that keeps coming down. And we have to come up with some central thing of like what we're about. Now, my thought on this is that reading the issues about board leadership, I've been continually trying to figure out how is it as a board we actually exert leadership. A lot of the positions I felt we've been in, is we've been in a position to provide consent, approval, and support for what has been brought to us. That's good. I mean, and I think that we've been very supportive of what's been brought to us. I think we are also a resource that could help out by providing some leadership. Now, one of the ways that I was trying to come up with an example of that, so I can bring back to the board, I was looking through all the documents we have. One of the, this is just one example. One of the things that come up, we're about socioeconomic learning, and social emotional learning. We do a really good job on the environment, setting up a classroom that's socially and emotionally supportive of students. At the core of that model are things like student responsibility, student management, student awareness. Now, I'm trying to look down at where are the indicators that we are accomplishing. And one of the things, if we had accomplished that, it's been around for years in the system, if we had accomplished that, a lot of the problems we're having with moving to hybrid models would be basically a lot easier because students would have responsible decision making, self-awareness, and self-management to adapt to that environment. And we're struggling. I look at the board documents in terms of another term that comes up a lot of times is growth mindset and growth issues. Now, I asked for some information on, I know I brought up the idea about the growth index of the state. I also asked, just gave me some indication of the grades. If we had a growth mindset, for example, that would mean that like students that were, say, at level 4 in third grade. Some of them would move up to level 3. You know, I mean, they would be growing. Now, with the information I got back for 2 years, because we have as many students, you know, from 1 year to the next, as many students at level 4 in year 1 as we do in year 2. Many students at level 3 in year 1 as in year 2. And on and on. So basically what's happening in that small sample is that the students who basically are in level 3 are staying in level 3 year to year to year. There's not a growth trajectory yet. And that's just not here. It happens in other districts. You know, I mean, it's another district we're working at that, I mean, students, they asked about SAT scores, students passing SATs, you know, their field. When we looked at the data, we could identify students in the 3rd grade who were not going to pass because they stay, you know, kind of at that same level all the way through. And one of the measures we could look at, you know, as a board, we could start looking at information and bringing it back to Jeff and Amy to say they don't have the time to do this because of all this stuff. But we as a board could start getting information. You know, if a group of us wanted to start working together, we could start gathering information on issues about what is the central issue on the in our school. What is that outcome variable that we're going after? What is the answer to Camille's questions that we're going after? And if we can describe it, we can measure. And there are indicators about how we are focused and working on it. And I think that I continually get the sense that we are a resource that's underutilized. You know, and it's not that we are trying to, I wouldn't see us trying to critique the administration, trying to be negative about them, but using our collective resources to come up with, to gather information, to analyze, put the information together, and go back to, you know, here's what we as a board are finding on this. Here's a suggestion. You know, I mean, I know that the administration is really, really overtaxed, you know, with the issues that are taking, but I don't think that we all are. We really have helped out. And so I think my general, you know, the general question, how do we as a board exert our leadership? I think one of the ways we could do that is to gather information about what the district is doing on certain matters, put it together, and to say, can we put this together in a way that will prove it will show this is what we are about as a district. If we could do that, not only do we answer Neil's question, but we would put ourselves in a position to be one of the prime districts in the state that could be tapped by the governor for some additional funding on what a school district is capable of doing and can do in terms of focusing in on specific outcome measures. But then again, I said all that, and I think what will happen is that people take notes, that it's going to say, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
And I think we can get to it now, but my prediction is that everybody's going to say, we can't get to it now, we have to do it later.
That's where I was kind of, I was thinking that, just to use that terrible analogy, but when you start to see that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that's the time where I think the board should be able to engage with the administration and start to have these conversations about, so where are we going for the next 5 years, the next block of time? What's the big picture, and what should the goals be? So everything you were saying, Barry, I think.
I'm not saying where we're going, I'm trying to say where we are.
Oh, yeah.
What are we doing?
That's right. That's right.
It's not there, it's now.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, yeah. I think that has to be done as a board, but I think the board has to have the administration has to be part of that type of assessment. That's my opinion.
Sure.
Because we are not, all of us have different skill sets. You are pretty unique, Barry, in terms of where your skill set is, okay? And so you may be capable of doing some of these tasks. I'm not so sure that our board, all the members of the board are able to do that without support from the administrative team. The other thing is that we don't want to, I think that it's, what we really want to do is we want to do it as a district. We don't, we want, but I think you're right about there needs to be leadership from the board in saying we need to be proactive at a certain point in making a statement as to, well, where are we today, like you say, and where do we think we should try to be? So I'm not disagreeing. It's just like it's more of a there's a time. If the COVID thing hadn't happened, I think we'd be in a very different spot right now. That's my opinion.
I think a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would,
Yeah.
for sure. And do you mind if I just say a few things? I mean, I can absolutely understand where you're coming from, Barry, because I do think that you're frustrated. I think that you want to see and start action on something very valuable that I believe would benefit our district. And I hear you, and I don't know what the answer is. I guess, and I don't know what that answer is. And when you talk about take a leadership role, I take a leadership role here. It's just not the role that you want me to play at the moment, I guess. I don't know how else to say it. I really don't. I look at our district and they are struggling, along with every other district at the moment. I look at parents, I look at children, they're struggling, whether or not it's with their jobs, paying bills, their future, their care for their children. Children are struggling on what the new normal is, because it's not normal. It's not. And there's a lot of struggles going on. And there's a lot of frustrations along with your personal frustration. That's what I feel from you. I feel like it's a personal thing that you want to do. I don't know what else to say. I feel like if I push for the metrics that you're looking for, is going to completely just add on an additional stress and challenge for not just our district, but our teachers too. That's how I see it. Maybe I'm looking at it wrong, because I'm not seeing it maybe as passionately as Barry. I would hate to be viewed as someone kicking something down the road with a can down the road and comparing that. Because I certainly don't see myself as that, and I certainly want to, give attention to everybody's want or things that they think are important, including my own, that I think that would help make this district even better. But I have to wait. And I don't know what that answer is, but I do know that I sit along with a lot of you, and I know that we're a team, and I think that we can help each other to, maybe help Barry. You've got some really incredible ideas and the things that, I hear what you're saying. Who are we? Where do we want to go? And I'd like to have that conversation. I just don't think it just can't be the focus right now.
And that may be why, when Eric mentioned earlier, workshop at an appropriate time, we were kind of saying, well, if hopefully things pull together here, and so on the early November time period might be a very fruitful time. That's where we would say we would start having conversations about where are we today as a district, where are we against the direction that we have on the two big items. But we also have conversations around, well, now that we're starting to see that there's an end to this COVID situation, what should we be doing as a district to prepare for
two huge goals for this year. It's the safety and health of every single person in our district. I mean, that's COVID and diversity, inclusion. Those are our two huge goals for this year. We have to make sure everyone is healthy and safe mentally and physically, right? That's what we do. But with Eric, we have to sit down, we have to talk, we have to be in a room together, we can all ask our ideas off of each other. I have to say, in all honesty, I'm a human being, I'm burnt out, which I know that all of you are too. Teachers are burnt out, the administration is burnt out. I'm burnt out as a person, as a parent, making sure my kids have classes done every day, going to work full-time, yes, coming home and doing work with my first grader because her father works all day and he doesn't do it too. So we are all burning candles and blowing ends, and I don't know if adding another flame to the candle is going to help us, or if it's all just going to give us burnout, and we're going to use this, and we're going to be worthless, and we're not going to have any ideas, and we're all just going to put it in the towel and call it a day. So I don't want to see us become that board that has a big puddle of wax and then nothing happening. I want to see us shine bright and thrive because we are succeeding and we're feeling good about what we do and who we are. And I am scared that if we just throw in another thing onto this, that's what's going to happen. And Gary, I respect you and I respect your decision and your feelings on what we need to be adding into this. But a lot of us are just burnt out. And I don't know if we can add another thing that wasn't that high.
Bill, do you have anything on?
Well, I think that you're incredibly optimistic to think that the first week in November is going to be a good time for anything. I think the first week in November might be the worst we've ever seen in our entire lives. But, and, you know, I think that, you know, what we've got, I understand where Barry's coming from to some degree in that if we had had some of what he wanted to put in place, if we could have worked that in beforehand, then we would have students that are able to deal with what we're dealing with right now in many ways. But I understand where you're coming from because I'm right there with you in that to even suggest to someone that in addition to figuring out how to use your new computer into Zoom while you're trying to teach cohort A and B and C, and that you need to also measure these things and try to deliver that stuff is just going to put someone over the top. And, you know, I walked here, I left a debate in our house that was going on about trying to, and I couldn't really come up with a good answer, explain to my son why a teacher could not put a Black Lives Matter poster up in their classroom when he felt as though this was a civil rights movement and would be no different than putting a picture of Martin Luther King up in your classroom. And I did not have a good answer for him. And, you know, this was a really, I'm like, I don't know, Jeff. I don't know. I know that the lawyers told our school district that we couldn't put them up. Why? Did I research what the reason that was? I don't know. But and I agree with you. I don't get it. So there's a lot going on, and I think it's going to be. And I also think that blended in with the responsibility of trying to raise children that are not racist, we are struggling as teachers. I am with the concept of what is the truth and what are facts. I recently watched a documentary on After Truth, and these kids are growing up in a world where reporting is opinions. It's not based on truth. And how do you teach kids to make good decisions based on stuff that's not real? So I think we've got a challenging road ahead of us. I'm game, I'm ready to help in any way I can, but I'm worried about the first and second week in November.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's part of, yeah. Barry, the one thing you said that does resonate, a lot of it resonates with me, but one of the things that really resonates is the point that you made about if the child's in the 3rd grade and they're in the 4th tier, and then you look and when they're a junior in high school, they're still in the fourth tier, that they haven't progressed. I believe that that's true. I don't know why or how you address that, but I do know that there are children that basically are stuck at a level, and that they never really go up, and that's bad. That's not good, and that's something that should be addressed. I'm kind of just saying that at this moment in history, I think we have other things we have to focus on. Go ahead. You move forward.
Last thing I'll say, I'm not saying that we have an add-on. This is not an add-on that I'm advocating. If you look at our central documents, we have the word coherence in that. And right now, coherence, as I've looked at what we've done, means that if Lily B. Haynes is teaching multiplication tables through 8, Niantic is teaching it through 10, and Flanders is teaching it through 12, then the three should be coherent in what we're doing. That's good. But we have multiple initiatives. What is the coherence? What are we all about? This is not an add-on, it's just basically just stepping back and taking a look at what are we doing right now in terms of coherence. It's a unification. It's easing up for teachers who are so scattered by the multiple initiatives that are being dropped on them. We're trying to make their lives easier as, work with the administration. And again, I'm not advocating an ad hoc with the administration, it's we have to work together. And the thing is that we go forward to we want to have a meeting, want to have discussions. I would like those discussions to be informed. There is information in our system that's already in existence. It is not new stuff that has to be made. If we could get access to that as a board, we could put it together in a way to go back and work with the administration to say, if we have coherent, this is the information that's already there. How can we figure out to use it to say this is what we're doing and here's where we're going with it? To make sure that our decisions around the central theme of coherence are informed. And we can do that now. It's not an add-on.
To me, it is it basically is saying, let's start to talk about the elements of what a new strategic plan in the district should be. That's what I'm saying. And I'm just saying at this moment in history, right now, I think that would be an incredibly bad idea to do. I think we have to just cope with the situation that we're in with, at this point, support our administrative team, do the things that we've been doing to try to keep the district somewhat online. And that's kind of where my head is. I mean, and it's unfortunate. We've been rammed with two major things: COVID, and then all the unrest and cultural issues surrounding diversity and all the things that Bill was articulating. So that to me, that's where my head is. But that's, again, I'm just one of the board members. Okay? Anybody else want to add anything? No. Good. All right. Moving on. So administration reports. Jeff?
So just a couple, one most important for Wednesday, for the virtual equity, or the equity training. We can save ourselves $250 if we want to do that virtually as a board, or if you want to do it on site, it's an additional cost because the trainer has to come to us. So if the trainer comes to us, it's going to cost us $1,000. If we want to do it virtually, it's going to cost us $750. It's just us, this group right here, that's going to be part of that. So it's just a question to all of you. Are you okay if we do it virtually so she doesn't have to travel here? Or do you really want to be on site and do the training with her as well? Just want to put that out. Tim and I talked a little bit about it. So we wanted to pose it to the full board.
Honestly, I think we get more out of it in person.
That was my initial gut, was that we should probably be in person. I don't know what the training plan is, what the aspects of it are, but my guess is that engagement would probably be a bit higher.
I can send that to you. You have her proposal and information.
That'd be great.
That was just a question we wanted to ask. Right? Doesn't matter to me. It's just.
How long is the training?
She has it broken out into about roughly an hour and a half.
2 hours.
Well, yeah, 2 hours. Yep.
Eric?
It's not 5 to 7 in the auditorium.
That's what we talked about originally, doing it in the auditorium, and or we could, we could do it in here.
How's this working?
This is good. I don't know if it's great projecting. I don't know if people can hear us very well, but I think it's good for us.
Well, it is over.
Yeah, so this would be a good setting for something like that. I think, we can spend $750 and maybe get something good, or we can spend $1,000 and make it highly probable that we'll get something good. It seems like the $250 is worth spending.
I just wanted to get everybody's reaction to, just how comfortable everybody is.
This is tough stuff. It's really hard to, assuming what we're going to talk about, it's just challenges here, and the more, personally, I want to process things, it's probably easier, where I'm not someone walking in and looking here, that I can.
True.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good point.
Gary, you got any reaction?
I'm more in favor of Zoom. I'm very uncomfortable in this setting.
Would you want to zoom in to it if we were to meet?
That's a possibility, I would.
Okay.
Yeah, because if we're going, I've had a similar training, I haven't had her, but I've had a similar training in person and online. So my experience was I think everyone got more out of it being in person. I will absolutely say that. And if we are going to be in person, and if for anybody that is feeling uncomfortable, you could zoom in.
We'll do that. Yeah, okay, so let's do that then.
Can I say something?
Oh, absolutely, sure.
If you're zooming in, I don't think we should have the black hole down. I think you should be there if you're zooming in.
Oh, yeah, so we see your face, yeah.
I keep forgetting that we have, who's zooming in tonight?
We have the administrators.
No, Kate is supposed to be zooming in.
Oh, Kate, yeah,
No,
Kate's on.
Jill, maybe
Kate and
we
Jill.
can ask them. I don't even know if they
I
can
don't
hear
even
you.
know if they're there.
That's the tough, it's one of the tough challenges.
See them anymore.
Kate's still on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Kate, you want to say something?
Is she there or is it just a picture?
I don't know.
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like, so if we're gonna Zoom, if we're gonna spend $1,000 on this woman being here, I think that people should be live on the Zoom, not the black hole or the screenshot.
Like, it's just the same challenge that teachers are having.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
but if
For
if
sure.
we're gonna spend the money and the
Agreed.
time to do this training, people
Agreed.
should be present.
Agreed.
So let's do that. And we'll
We'll
zoom in,
on-site.
we'll have Barry, and I'll check with others that, what they want to do, and then we'll set it up.
Yeah.
We'll set it up that way.
Sounds good.
All right, and I'll send this to you tomorrow. It's Courageous Conversations format is what she's using. So we received that, and we'll make sure to reach out to her tomorrow and have her on site. policy component, everybody's aware that, we canceled the policy committee meeting. Rather than doing it twice with the policy and then again with the Board of Ed, we're just gonna have Jessica, she did a comprehensive review, it's a 7-page document. We're gonna have that reviewed by her at the meeting on the 29th. That's a Tuesday. We're going to move the meeting from 28th to the 29th. So we'll go through all that, the audit report, and then we'll go from there.
It's better that way.
I think so too. I
absolutely
agree. Get the full board's attention on it.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I thought it was a much better idea.
Yeah. So,
Did you say our board meeting is moved to the 29th?
we need to move it to the 29th from 28th. 28th is the original date, Monday, and we move it to Tuesday the 29th. Yeah, I mean, 5 p.m. is work because the custodians, so they can clean up and clean in here afterwards. I thought of that, Bill, I know, that was only the issue that we're running into.
And in general, what we're gonna do, because I'm getting, we're meeting, is there a general meeting place in here?
I think the test was pretty good. What do people think? I mean, this seems to work.
I think the only problem is that people, I don't know if people can hear us, so I don't know if
It's, yeah, I'm getting that
Do
too.
we have additional mics?
that's what I was gonna ask, yeah.
Graham, we've kind of talked about that. I think the issue with what was the issue with the mics? I mean, we can all be on Zoom and we just have to know how to turn off our mics or turn them on when we speak.
Okay.
So that's what we do to our admin meetings. But you guys got to remember to hit your volume off and your mic off. Whenever somebody's talking, you can have it on your computer so everybody can hear you. We could do it that way. It just takes a little practice and training and work.
Okay.
That's the easiest way to do it.
The other mics are locked in at the high school. You'd have to disassemble, pack up, ship, reassemble, repeat.
Well, we can practice together, because that would be more, because I don't think people can hear us.
No, I don't.
They can hear, yeah, they can hear some. I'm getting some feedback, and you probably got a text or two, yeah. They can hear some and can't hear others. The masks aren't helping either, obviously, muffling our voices. But so that
This is exactly what the kids are experiencing.
yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So the kids that are zooming into a class, when that teacher, and I'm doing the same thing, you walk away from the mic, they can't hear you, it's muffled. It's really, really difficult without, like, if you almost need a wireless mic hooked onto your body.
That's a good idea.
Hooked up to your computer. It's a great idea, but you probably couldn't even buy them.
Right.
And it needs to be hooked up to your computer.
Can you do
Really?
the captions? Can the captions come up, like for a teacher?
If you look at the Zooms, interpretation of what you say, it's not even close. It's not even close. I mean, YouTube does a much better job, but the Zoom thing is like, because it's all muffled and
Right.
it's not good.
All right, so that's all I had for kids.
Amy?
My 2 points were, we are at 254 virtual Vikings. It's an uptake of about 20 students during virtual Vikings after the first week of school. 254.
Almost 10%.
So we saw an uptake of about 20 students after the first week of school, moved to virtual Vikings. I'm still getting pretty much daily requests, so we're cohorting still daily. Then the other piece I wanted to let you know is some of you know that at the end of July, the governor announced this $43 million project around Everybody Learns initiative. And it was really going to priority districts in regards to getting laptops and in regards to getting hotspots. Well, a lot of those priority districts were 1-to-1. So it greatly benefited the rest of us in the sense that at the onset of the start of September, end of August, we got a quick emergency the State Department actually has money that districts can apply for, and you might be able to get it. So of course we asked for the moon and stars, because why not?
Yeah.
And we actually ended up getting approved for altogether 105 hotspots. We have 58 being deployed to families. Families are coming in one at a time, because we do need to work with either Comcast or Atlantic Broadband, depending on where they are in town, and really set them up. But that has been, we've started the deployments of those, which is great. And we are getting 348 Dell laptops, because the State Department went with Dell, which is great, the same company that we went with. So we are getting 348, so it looks like the second and third graders will end up getting new laptops too. I think we're off by 7 right now on our enrollment numbers, so we'll see where we go once they come in. I'm happy to say that the State Department's delay of those are longer than ours, so, which I knew was gonna happen, but they're looking more to be like the end of October that those 348 would come in, but hopefully by then we'd have the ones returned and our newer ones will be deployed. So we are getting those. What's important too about the hotspots is it only provides the families 12 months. And we have to remind the families, we must return them or we as a district start getting charged for them. Because then we're supplying those families or those households with basically internet access as well. So we have a system set up for that. I'm not worried about it, but we're happy to be able to provide it because we definitely have some families that are really high need, where their kids couldn't engage at all during the first week of school. So those are just sort of 2 quick number updates, like you got a sense of what we're dealing with. Yeah.
Speaking of returns, did we get everything returned?
We are only missing 11. And those 11 people will not get their new device. Not be returned.
Wow.
In general, like ballpark, you said you're getting a lot more requests for virtual lighting. Is that spread across academy levels, or are you trying to get concentrated at specific?
It is concentrated at the high school right now. Yep. So at the high school in particular, I think it's a little bit easier for families to wrap their head around their older staying home.
Yep.
And there's certainly some dynamics, some families, we've seen a couple, we've seen some teetering. We've had about probably 30 families that have said, I want this, and we go and make a change, and then a day or 2 later, they're like, no, go back. That didn't go so well when the kid and I first had time talking about it. But it's at high school and or middle for a while. It was getting up there at the elementary level, but that seems to have plateaued. If anything, like today, I did 18 students re-forwarding, and I moved 3 virtual lighting back to class. So what's important right now is our priority is if this family wants to go right to virtual lighting, if a elementary and or virtual lighting want to come back, that's what we want, nothing to come back, and then a partner, whether that be financial, family, or medical, and that's sort of what we use to call it. So yeah, so that's just an update, so you know where we are in numbers wise.
Mariana? Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to ask a quick question
Go ahead.
because we haven't brought it up, and I don't know if Kim's with us, and I just kind of want to see from her perspective for special ed how that's acclimating. Is she with us?
Yeah,
Just ask her from her perspective. I know that we have, some 4-day students, and just to kind of get her feedback on it. And I should have asked when we were talking, and I'm sorry.
Hey, Kim.
Yeah, hi. I wasn't sure. It is hard to hear you. So I was like, are they asking if I'm here? I'm here. So if you can say your question a little louder, I'm not sure what you're asking, but I'll be happy to try to answer.
Okay, I'm going to try. Can you hear me?
I hear ya.
Okay, so I should have asked earlier, but how, from your perspective, for special ed, our 4-day students, or for the 2-day, whichever they've chosen, how is that going for our kids?
Yeah, I think it's going well. I mean, from a parent perspective, I'm not really getting very many emails, so that's usually a good sign. And, the teachers, just like all the other teachers, are, adjusting and figuring out schedules. I will say probably a little bit of an unanticipated stressor for our related service staff like speech, OT, PT, school psychologists is that they've kind of lost half a day of access to students because we're not scheduling. We don't have, classes basically on Wednesday afternoons. So that's a little bit of a drawback and they have to rethink how they're scheduling. But the kids are adjusting. The things I have heard from parents is it's so great for them to be in a routine that's consistent. With the Wednesday home, it's just one day to adjust to rather than 3. And so far, so good.
Good, good. Thank you, Kim. Thank you
Sure.
so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no problem. Good question. That's fine. That's what we're here for.
Thanks, Mary Ellen.
Yep, we're on it.
We're starting with 21, 22 budget.
21, 22.
We're starting that, so that's going to be going out shortly.
They should be icing on
No
We
problem.
look at each other really good, like 21, 22, really?
I know, I actually created the folder and I put 2021, it's like a folder already exists, I'm like, oh my God, yeah, that's what we're in right now, so we're starting that. And next week, Anna Johnson and I are meeting with Munis to start, Munis rep, to start our first stages of moving forward and starting that process.
Excellent. Committee reports, let's see, there was an FFO meeting, and I think we covered the big topic. Gary, anything else?
Also, the electricity
Yes.
is running, so the delivery for electricity is running higher from other source. So that's something we gotta keep a close eye on.
Oh, yeah, right, revenues and pool.
Oh, yeah, cool. So, we did talk about the aquatic center. We talked about the aquatic center, which right now is running at a deficit. There's not that much we can do in the near term, but we did start talking about ideas of what we can do, hopefully in a couple months, that we can start making some changes that will get us back on a better footing for the aquatic center. So we did start having some conversations. And, Rob did a nice job talking to us about the aquatic center. Chris did a nice job talking about both the topic we have today and then also with electricity.
About the free lunches now, how is that affecting our bottom line for us to lunch program?
So we get reimbursed, it's still considered, it's called some SSO, so we get reimbursed at a little bit of a higher rate. And Chris Urban does a phenomenal job of getting USDA product, and also he reaches out to some of our daily food banks who have donated food, and even those to other companies that we're doing. So we actually are doing well. There's right now.
So are they, I guess my question is, are they covering anything the kids get for lunch, or is
No.
it just a set lunch that they're covering?
Correct, just the set lunch, and then we're not offering like the a la carte like we used to offer just because we can't because of the circumstances. So it really is just the lunch. Exactly.
I didn't know how.
Yeah.
That's what the other reimbursement. Okay.
I think that's it. More comments, future agenda topics, comments? Anybody? Maybe good? Okay, so, Jamie, you want to make a
Oh my
motion?
gosh, I just want to make an motion to adjourn.
Okay, Anna seconds it, all those in favor?
Aye.